Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Yellow Ribbon Arsenal podcast. I'm joined, as always, and hopefully into the future, will always be here, Henry.
Brilliant. Cheers for having me back, mate.
Oh, no worries at all. Cheers for coming back.
Not at all, mate. Not at all.
And no, I do promise those intros are going to become a lot more complimentary. I'm gonna get some nice ones in there.
I expect a marriage proposal by 20.
Of course, I mean if we get that far. But yeah, so if you want to follow Henry, plug your Twitter, mate.
It is at Henry_Nettle.
Beautiful, and I'll plug my Instagram because that is the main thing I use, and it is Connor_James Football. Obviously, all one word. But yeah, with less of trying to plug our social media accounts, let's get cracking into what is actually going to be, considering it's been a pretty dull international break, I think today's podcast is actually going to be quite an interesting one, because looking at the running order here, we have got some very interesting topics to be talking about. None more interesting than just Unai Emery, the fans' perception of him, and how sort of the possibility of that already turning slightly sour 4 games into the new season. And I just wanted to quickly first ask Henry, where are you standing on Unai Emery at the moment?
I'm slightly torn. The rational side of me, this is his first season where he's managed to get in a decent squad of players to start playing the way he wants to play, but I don't know what that is. You think of last season and the great results we had, it was all the pressing football, and then towards the end of last season, beginning of this season, even when the formation's been changing, the system's been changing a lot as well. The way we've approached games, we've been trying to sit back and counter-attack, which I don't think suits us. And it feels like he still doesn't know what his best team is, which after a year and 2 transfer windows you would expect your manager to have by now.
Yeah.
Certainly if you look at other clubs that we're supposed to be competing with, you could argue Jurgen Klopp, after same amount of time in charge of Liverpool, knew what his team was, had implemented his style. Chelsea, with their revolving door system, they always have a manager that implements their identity quickly and has their starting 11 quite quickly. Whereas Unai Emery still seems a bit unsure. Still seems, whether he's not confident in the players or he doesn't know what system, or whether he's trying to take an approach where he's reacting to what other teams play instead of trying to stamp his own authority on the team. It's all a little bit up in the air at the moment. Bit confusing. Yeah,
and that, I think that is essentially, to be fair, mate, I think we're very much on the same page. I mean, what the thing is with me is I'm not going to start writing the manager off 3 or 4. How many games are we into the season? 3?
4 games.
4 games into the season, I'm not going to start writing a manager off. And that, as you said, that's my rational brain talking. My footballing, emotional brain at the moment, however, is very different.
Unai out.
And exactly, it's screaming Unai out. No, it's not. But what it is I am struggling at the moment to get behind this whole approach of the chameleonic sort of, we only play depending on what our opposition has or is going to give to us. Because, and obviously it's a difficult argument to make, because when we were back in the Wenger's sort of last few seasons, what I was crying out for is a manager who went game by game and said, right, we're up against this team away from home, they can do this, this and this, but they can't do this, this and this. Therefore, we should do X, Y, Z, and we should not do X, Y, Z. So I am 100% aware how hypocritical I'm being, but now that we've actually got a pragmatic manager in Emery, I'm struggling to enjoy the football I'm watching. And that is an issue. That is an issue just because I can't ever guess what the starting lineup's going to be. I can't ever guess what style of football we're going to play. And that could be a fantastic thing, because obviously if I can't do it, if you can't do it, the likelihood is the opposition managers probably can't do it, which is a good thing. But there's going to come a point, and as you mentioned with Klopp and Pep, there comes a point where you have to play your type of football. And the way you're going to win games is by your type of football being better than the other team's type of football. We're never going to improve as a team if we're doing something new every week. And that is what is frustrating me. And again, it's 4 games into the season, so this might just be sort of horses for courses. We've had to do it for the first 4 games sort of thing. But I would worry if it goes on into the sort of 10th, 11th game.
Yeah.
To be honest, it would frustrate me.
Listening to the Arscast podcast from I think it was last week, just after the Spurs game, and they were talking again. They were talking about this topic, about what's our system, how are we playing.
Yeah.
And I am unsure whether that they were saying about Bellerin and Tierney still to come back, and how with the way that we were playing last season, our fullbacks was so key to the type of football we were playing, with them overlapping the wingers and getting balls into the box. But I really struggle to believe that our system is entirely reliant on having 2 players in a squad. That with 9 of your first choice players, it doesn't work. It doesn't sit right. And if that is what's actually happening, that's worrying. That we have no plan B in that regards.
I agree.
That we have no backup strategy that would work to the same extent that our main strategy would.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're completely right. If there was this strategy that we're just waiting for Bellerin and Tierney to come back to finally kick into gear, then we should be seeing the sort of, yes, a less advanced version of it, but we should be seeing the early signs of it. Yes, obviously Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac aren't going to be able to carry it out as well, but we need to get the rest of the team in shape to do that if we really are relying on these 2 players to come back, and sort of kickstart that whole approach. And we're not seeing any sort of manifestation of any kind of identity and sort of generic approach. So I don't know how much I lend myself to that thinking that it's reliant on Hector and Kieran Tierney to get back in order for us to implement this approach that Emery has stored somewhere. But yeah, I think for me, it's a frustrating one, and I understand how hypocritical I'm going to be, and every single podcast I'm going to say something that completely contradicts what I said last week. But I think for me, at the moment, I'm not going as crazy as everyone else is. Not everyone else, but you see a lot of people are calling for his head already. That's not me at all.
No, it's over the top. Way too early for that.
Absolutely, and I just want to see... All I want to see is Unai Emery's type of football. He had it at Sevilla. He had it at PSG.
They were brilliant. The Sevilla system was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd
routinely overachieved with that team.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They had their type of football and they played their type of football. I don't care if it's the prettiest tiki-taka, lovely style of play. I just want to see something. I want to see something that is Arsenal through and through and I can get behind. I don't mind what it is, but I want something there that it looks like we're turning up every home game and most away games just going, we're going to play like Arsenal do, try and beat us because you're probably not, because we're that good at what we do. And that's what I think maybe we've been spoiled as Arsenal fans over the years, because that's sort of what we've grown up being used to. So whether I'm asking for too much, I'm not really sure, but that's what I want.
Well, I think maybe we are, because if you look at last season, it was, we got more points than we did in the last Wenger season. The football was nothing like Wenger ball. We saw it in glimpses. You figure the Leicester game, for example, where we just tore them apart with our passing. But other than that, it wasn't something we did routinely last season. It was much more of the pressing that we got our main results with. So even when the results in the early Emirates era, I'm thinking of the teams of like Denilson and Diaby in centre mid. We were awful, but my God, was the football beautiful.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think maybe
exactly.
we're so used to losing pretty that winning
Yeah,
ugly still feels a bit alien to us as Arsenal fans,
yeah,
especially Arsenal fans of our age. You know, 1-0 to the Arsenal fans will will remember this type of awful football fondly, but
yeah.
for us it's yeah, bit alien.
It is, and I think you've hit the nail on the head really with the whole sort of winning ugly feels a bit alien to us, and we're not as inclined to sort of get behind it, because at the end of the day, we if just purely not knowing what any of the scores were for the first four games and just looking at the social media reaction to our start of the season, you'd really think that we'd sort of scrape together 2 or 3 points.
Yeah,
Um, but in actual fact, what are we on now? So we got 2 wins, a draw, and a loss. Um, is that right? Yeah.
yeah. But contextually, when you say you've gone away to Anfield and had a North London derby, I think that's all right.
Yes, absolutely. And I worry that everyone's now got it. Not everyone, but a lot of the fan base now got it in their head. Emery's not the man. I don't like the kind of football, and humans are stubborn creatures, and I worry that people just aren't going to be able to get as behind him and aren't as open-minded for any sort of incremental changes that are now going to happen going forward in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if there's one thing that Arsenal need right now, it's a rocking Emirates every single other weekend.
Yeah, which it was for the derby. I don't think I've heard the Emirates that loud since we beat Barcelona.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for everything I've heard, seems absolutely fantastic. I would have loved to have been there.
Trying to get tickets for that derby when you're not a season ticket holder is like gold dust.
Oh yeah, honestly, I don't ever think, unless I somehow become um, a season ticket holder. It's a very depressing thing to think. I don't think I'll ever see a North London derby.
I'm 40,000th on the waiting list for a season ticket.
40,000.
By the time I get to
Christ.
0, I'll be able to afford one. It'll be fine.
Oh mate. Hopefully the elixir of life has come into full circulation, and because I don't know.
Pension fund straight on a season ticket.
Oh Christ, we're entrepreneurship students, mate. We're not going to get a pension. But yeah, just for Emery, it's way too early to be calling for his head. But my reflection really of the first four games is I want to see. I'm not calling for improvement. I'm not calling for big sort of 10-0 wins week in, week out. I just want to see something a bit consistent.
Mm.
That's all I want. What would your parting words on that topic be?
Again, just an identity. I want to know what sort of team we are. You think of pretty much every other team in the Premier League at the moment, regardless of how new their head coach is or manager, you know what you're going to get for them.
Yeah.
For us, playing, trying to get a smash and grab away to Anfield, I can't remember us ever trying to go for a smash and grab. Is that what we are? Are we a pragmatic team? Is that an identity? I'm not really sure. Or are we just a chopping and changing team because we don't know what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. That sort of, can pragmatism as an identity, in essence, yes, it is an identity, but can you really call it an identity when the whole point of being pragmatic is you change constantly depending on your environment?
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that, I think sort of that's been a bit of an easy get out for a lot of for Unai Emery and a lot of people that, like myself, who are behind Unai Emery. I think it is quite an easy get out in the debate by saying sort of, we do have an identity. It's sort of like a chameleonic, pragmatic type identity, but that in essence isn't an identity. And I think that's the crux of why it's frustrating.
Just feels a bit negative, doesn't it?
It does.
It just feels like we're not good enough to do what I want us to do, so we're not going to do it.
So
we'll try and hold on instead, or we're going to try and not. It's.
It feels like damage limitation, which feels
it's got to
just
do
so far
for the
beneath
mentality,
us.
hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When you go away at Anfield, and you're like, right guys, we're going to get absolutely battered here. So what I want you to do, sit
Stick
8
11
men
men behind the ball. Yeah.
And there will be 3 up top that you're just going to ping balls to and hope for the best. That's the game plan. And oh god, if you're one of the midfielders, you're probably thinking, hang on, I'm good enough to go up against these guys. Why wouldn't you let me have a go?
Yeah, because I mean, you look at a Liverpool midfield of Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum. I don't think Guendouzi, Torreira, Willock,
not Xhaka.
not Xhaka. He should quite rightly be terrified of them, but as he should any midfield in the Premier League. But I don't think most of our midfielders would look at those and go, yeah, fair play. I think we should hold back because they've got the beating of me here. Because I really don't think our midfield does. It's just obviously it's the way they play rather than who they've got.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's Liverpool's strength, isn't it? Especially in their midfield. You can say what you want about their front three, they're world class. But that midfield there, Fabinho's solid, Wijnaldum's good, Henderson's a workhorse, but it's not like the Real Madrid midfield, which plays poorly for them because they don't work as a team. That Liverpool midfield is a very strong unit.
They work for each other.
Yeah, which again, it's like with our approach, with our identity, it seems there's no partnerships in the midfield. You look at Liverpool's midfield; it's pretty much the same every game. 1 or 2 rotate out for fitness, but for us, it could be any one of 5 players in the centre at any time.
Absolutely.
It does nothing to solidify your team when you're chopping and changing like that.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the crucial things, especially in the Premier League. And don't get me wrong, Unai Emery is a highly paid manager because he's a lot better tactically than I am. I'm not under any false pretenses that I am this world-class Sir Alex Ferguson type. But surely it can't do wonders for a team when there's no continuity. There's no sort of... I can't remember what podcast. It very well could have been the Arsecast. But they were sort of... Someone was talking about how there doesn't seem to be a culture of meritocracy at Arsenal. There doesn't seem to be a culture of, you've played really, really well, so that's your spot. You have that. You're my best player. There you go. That's yours. There seems to be a sort of, apart from obviously with Aubameyang, but I think he's the only one. But especially in that midfield, I really think Guendouzi should be one of the first names on the team sheet, and so should Torreira.
Yeah. Well,
so regardless
so should
of
Joe Willock by the first 3 games of the season, Joe Willock was outstanding. For a kid his age to come straight into that midfield and start bossing it. Maybe it was the idea that, okay, if you had that midfield of Torreira, Willock and Guendouzi, that is a very young, very inexperienced midfield. And we'll get onto this later with what we want to talk about later in the podcast with how our teams would look. But there is a leadership void and an experience void in the centre of midfield for us. And I think that's why Xhaka routinely gets picked in that midfield, is because senior international, captain of the national team, played loads of games for us. It's someone that is a leader. Say what you want about his quality, he is a leader. Whereas if you had that midfield of, or even if you had Ceballos in there as a more attacking option and then had Guendouzi and Torreira, I'd be a bit worried about communication, about leadership in the centre of the park there, personally.
Yeah, I do see that side of the argument, but just for me personally, I think if you're looking around and you're looking in a team, and the man wearing your armband, the one that's meant to be the dependable one in the team, is making these schoolboy ludicrous errors, regardless of how much of a motivator or how much he shouts at everyone, you're going to look at that guy and start to think, who are you to tell me what to do? Like, this bloke who's gone sliding in 2 feet against Son, who hasn't even... he kicked the ball away from him about 10 seconds before Xhaka slid. It's going to start getting to a point where no matter how good his leadership qualities are, the overriding factor for the rest of the team is everyone's going to look at him and go, you're not actually that good at football. Who are you to tell me where to be and what to do? And that is what I worry with sort of sticking with Xhaka.
Yeah. I really feel like, I was personally surprised when we didn't bring another holding midfielder in over the summer. I really thought, given the system Unai Emery liked to employ at Sevilla, which was 2 big defensive midfielders, because again, I was was it earlier this week or last week? I was reading about him wanting Nzonzi over Torreira, and Sven
Yes, yeah,
Mislintat had to convince Emery that no, look at Torreira's stats, he's fantastic, get him,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's why that eventually materialised and Nzonzi didn't.
Mhm.
I'm really surprised we didn't go for another big midfielder, someone tall, someone strong. Just because if we're talking about Emery wanting to play his system, I think that's what is required for his system.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I do agree. There was one question actually that I wanted to ask you in regards, and to wrap up the sort of Unai Emery debate, is that looking to sort of next summer, let's imagine we've gone through the season, we've got a bit of consistency together, we've finished fourth, we're all happy, we're back in the Champions League, it's exactly what we wanted, but Allegri he makes that call and he goes, right, I want to manage Arsenal. Emery's contract is up. Allegri's saying, I want to come be your manager. What do you say?
it's a very defensive style of football, isn't it? Max Allegri's football.
Yeah, I think people overlook that a lot.
You can't question the way it worked at Juventus, but again, it didn't work in the Champions League. Arguably, that squad has been good enough for a while to at least compete very highly for Champions League.
Yep.
Serie A is a walk in the park for them at the moment. I wouldn't, and I don't think that would happen anyway. You look at the appointment of Edu trying to talk about the Arsenal philosophy and ensuring that remains. I don't think they would get a coach in that plays defensive football.
Yes,
but at the same time, you look at Simeone at Atletico Madrid. They play or played defensive football, but look brilliant attacking now. I think it was a case of you solidify the base, and it was both of their approaches. You solidify the base first, and then work on the attacking afterwards.
And I think that's exactly what we've done in the opposite.
Yeah,
we've solidified the attack and then gone, oh shit, oh shouldn't have swore. We've gone, oh no, oh no, we can't stop leaking goals, but that's fine because we can score loads, and then you're never actually going to win anything like that. So I think, you're completely right. I'd agree with you. I'd say no.
I'd be much more inclined for who's the old Hoffenheim coach, Nagelsmann.
Nagelsmann,
yeah. Much more inclined for someone like him because again, I'm a huge fan of the pressing football.
Yeah, he's hasn't he signed a pre-contract with RB Leipzig?
Leipzig, yeah. He's either there this season or he's going next. I can't remember. I haven't looked at German football this season yet.
Oh, that's a good point actually. Yeah, maybe he has already gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I think a lot of people just choose.
Leipzig.
He's already there, and they've had a great start to the season, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've been 4 games in. They've already scored about 15 goals.
Yeah, you look at the way their attack is stacked as well. They've got very similar players to us. They've got wide players that aren't particularly mobile, but they've got a striker in Timo Werner who's absolutely rapid.
Yeah, that Poulsen guy is pretty tasty.
Yeah, I think that's what we miss as well up front. Which, if we get on to our lineup and the front three and all that, is away from home. I think we miss a big man now. Say what you want about Giroud, but he brought something else when our backs were up against the wall and we're having to, really, really claw away at teams.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, he would have scored tons of goals last season with the Unai Emery sort of get it to the wings, cut it in, because he would have loved that arriving at the front post, flicking it up above the keeper.
Yeah.
He would have scored a hatful of goals. But and we've already touched slightly on Xhaka, but I did want to quickly talk about the interview, the kind of strange interview that Xhaka gave after the Spurs game, almost passing the blame, which I thought was very strange, especially from a captain, but I wanted to get specifically your point of view.
It's sparked a huge debate actually, because I can sort of understand the point he was making. He basically said that him making a foul inside the penalty area, giving away a penalty, was no different to a striker missing an easy chance, which, to an extent, I can understand. Right, if you're talking
Mhm.
about what you're expecting from a play, if you're giving away a penalty, you're expecting them to score, and if you're
Yeah.
through one-on-one, you're expecting your striker to score. But
Mhm.
football's a game of context, isn't it? There's much more
Yeah.
nuance involved than just saying this is this and this is that. So, I think back to the Liverpool
Mhm.
game. Aubameyang tried to chip the keeper from outside the box, went just wide. I I wouldn't hold that in the same
Mhm.
regards as Xhaka hacking down a player in the penalty area, and then we go down
Yeah.
to me, they are completely different things when the context is applied to them. Completely different.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think what he's trying to go for, I sort of understand the concept. The concept that everyone's having a go at me because I gave away a penalty, but is that really any different from Aubameyang missing a penalty last year? And my answer to that is yes, absolutely. Of course it's different because we've got a player in Aubameyang who, as a striker, you're there to score goals. What does Aubameyang do? He scores goals.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he misses a few. He could have missed as many as he liked against Spurs. He scores goals, and he did score a goal. The complete difference there is what you want from a striker is him getting in those positions.
Yeah.
You even
Completely.
want him. You want him to miss those chances because that means he's getting there. The complete difference with Xhaka is Xhaka did not need to do that. There was absolutely no need for it. So I can't, from a very, very basic point of view, I can see where he's coming from. There is a parallel of the striker's not doing his job, no one cares. The holding midfielder is not doing his job very well, everyone cares. Why is that fair? Because, as you say, it's a game of context. And and when's the last time you've seen Aubameyang do something and go, that is completely brainless? Like, that is the stupidest thing you could have done in that situation.
It's like, don't get me wrong, Aubameyang misses his fair share of easy chances. A number
Absolutely.
of times, ball will get fired across the box, he'll have a tap in, he'll hit it over the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, Aubameyang isn't an outstanding footballer. It's just his off-the-ball stuff that makes him incredible, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to get into those positions. So what the difference is, Aubameyang has done everything right up until a point. Whereas Xhaka, giving away a penalty, first of all, if you're a holding midfielder, you're supposed to be cutting that ball out before it gets anywhere near your defence. So you've already made the mistake in not breaking up the play earlier. You've then given away the foul, so you've done nothing right. You've done everything wrong. So I think that's where the differences lie between those two things, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, Aubameyang's done everything right, and then he's just miscued the last bit. Xhaka has done everything wrong and then continued to do something wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't... And the thing that stresses me out is to see your captain go away on international duty and then almost, and I know he didn't directly do it, and I'm not saying that he literally went on national television and went, Orba's rubbish, Laka's rubbish, they missed loads of shots, why aren't you blaming them? Like, I know he didn't say that, but to go away on international break and then hold an interview where you sort of say, oh, why are you pointing the finger at me? Like, there's loads of other people that did stuff wrong. Is the least captain-like thing you could have possibly done in the situation.
Yeah.
I think, if I was Xhaka, I'm standing there and going, we played fantastic as a team, I made a mistake, I let the team down, but I hope, because he had a half-decent second half.
Yeah.
So I would have stood there and said, I made a mistake in the first half, but I really hope what I did in the second half, I really tried to make up for it, I really worked for the team, and at the end of the day, it's behind us now, all we can do is move on, and I can try and put things right in the next few games. That's all he needed to say. He didn't need to talk about anyone else.
Well, again, so it's, this is... I haven't seen a video of this interview anywhere, so it's only tabloid media that have reported it. So I don't know whether it's been taken slightly out of context and twisted in such a way that we then react to it like we are now.
Yeah, of
But
course, yeah.
to try and play devil's advocate here, perhaps what he was more going for, talking about the chances we missed, talking about him being criticised solely for us drawing a game 2-2.
Yep.
So perhaps he was inferring that nobody talked about the first goal when, maybe he could have done more to win the header, but the error certainly wasn't his. You
Yeah.
talk about, again, so he's talked about chances we missed, but no one, it was completely Xhaka's fault after that game. I think we can all agree. Everyone
Yeah.
was hounding him, so perhaps that's what he was more going for instead of trying to attack his teammates. It was more of a,
Yeah.
why is it being focused on me thing.
Yeah, I do see that, and I do sympathise with that, because that must be really tough. The feeling that, you know what, I gave my all, yeah, I made a mistake, but now I am the worst human being alive, sort of thing. That must be really tough. But at the same time, at the same time, what was I going to say? At the same time, the ability of someone like Socrates, who was at fault for the first goal, what he doesn't do is make those errors as consistently as Xhaka does.
Yeah.
I think that is what the problem is.
Well, I think though, because saw the statistic. I first saw someone post this on Twitter that out of all the Premier League teams in the last 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, we've made the most errors leading to goals. And someone commented saying, remove Xhaka and Mustafi from that and we'll be fine. And I think we made like 30 something errors leading to goals, which is incredible how we've made that many.
Yeah.
I think Xhaka's responsible for 6 errors leading to goals, and Mustafi was only 3 or 4, surprisingly, because I suppose awful defending doesn't count as a mistake leading to a goal.
Yeah.
So, actually, it's a fundamental problem that extends further into the squad than just 1 or 2 players.
Yeah. But I do think a third of all errors leading to goals coming from 2 players is still a bit... That's a bit excessive.
Well, you think because again, you'd then have to try and break that down into per 90 minutes played and all that to get an accurate representation of where your main errors are.
And
because
they both
Xhaka
did play a lot last
pretty
season.
much every game, hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'd hate to... It sounds like I don't hate to bash Xhaka, but I do hate to bash Xhaka, because at the end of the day, he's an Arsenal player, and I don't want to dislike any Arsenal player, but he's making it very, very difficult at the moment. And is that where we want to leave it for part 1?
Yeah, let's leave it there for part 1.
Leave it there for part 1, and then when we come back in part 2, it's going to be doubly exciting. It's we're going to be talking all things our maniac front 3, how to get them working, what exactly our starting lineup looks like, and all a bit more general news surrounding Arsenal during this very, very boring international break. See you in a sec. Welcome back, everyone, to the Yellow Ribbon Arsenal podcast. Thank you for bearing with us through that break, and we will be getting straight into part 2 by talking about the important topic that's on every Arsenal fan's lips right now, is what on earth are we going to do with our incredibly talented, but as a team, very raw front 3. And for me, personally, I have absolutely hated on social media this week seeing people already trying to brandish Pepe a flop. For me, I think he's been fantastic. He's been one of our standout players against Liverpool and Spurs, and just because he hasn't scored a goal, I think it's ludicrous to start calling him a flop. But Henry, yeah, sort of start us off there. What do you think about all the Pepe criticism, or am I wrong? Do you even think there has been?
I'd say I'm concerned about Pepe, not necessarily that I'm critical of him. You look at the season he had for Lille last season, you'd sort of expect him to hit the ground running more so than he's done, especially when he didn't feature prominently for the Ivory Coast squad, because I believe it was actually Wilfried Zaha that kept him out.
Yes, I did notice that over the summer.
Might be wrong there, but I think it was Zaha.
I think you are right, yeah.
He's, again, not a huge watcher of French football. didn't watch many of his 90 minutes, only saw highlights here and there, right?
Yeah.
His finishing and passing in the French league looked much, much better than it has done in his first 4 games. Whether that's just pressure, he's just, taking his time to warm up a little bit, I don't know. But that's been concerning. His dribbling, first touch, pace, absolutely fine. No worries about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, it just looks a bit of a case of he's just trying to find feet. But
Yeah.
yeah, just to write him off as a flop at this stage when we're 4 games into the season is ridiculous. Like, by all means,
crazy.
demand more of your players. I don't have a problem with fans doing that, expecting more, especially of a player that cost as much as he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, no, I wouldn't write him off this early. That's ridiculous.
No, it is ridiculous. And I think he's had a bit of a culture shock because he's come in... He's had 2 years where he's been the main man. Every single time. And again, I'm exactly the same as you. All I've seen is YouTube videos. But what it looked like and what it seemed like, and from everything I've been reading and listening to, he was the main guy there, and it was sort of, whenever the midfield got the ball, right, where's Pepe?
Yeah.
Whenever his other attackers got the ball, right, where's Pepe? So he can make 5 or 6 misplaced passes a game and get off fine because he will be seeing the ball about 5 times more than those mistakes. That's where he's going to have the issue at Arsenal, is he needs to learn that when he gets that ball, he's not the main man. He's going to have to do something with that ball every time he gets it in order to be a success. And I think he's definitely got it in him. He's 100% got it in him, but I think the Premier League, more so than any league in the world, is a really tough place to go for any kind of newcomer. And yeah, completely agree with you. It's ridiculous to write him off as a flop, but I wouldn't say concern, but I'd say there's something in me that goes, oh, why haven't you quite hit the ground running as much as we did expect? But he's played against Liverpool and Tottenham in his 2 full games. So.
Yeah, and certainly if we're saying that, because he arrived very late on in the window, so really hasn't had time to settle. The time you'd then expect him to start performing is the 2 toughest games we've had so far this season. So perhaps Watford this weekend is going to be a much better game for him. Perhaps now he'll be fully integrated into the team.
Yes.
But not writing him off. He looks exciting, doesn't he?
He does.
What we've been crying out for is someone that can carry the ball forward. The amount of dribbles he's completed in the limited game time he's had is just outstanding. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. And I think if you get a player like Sterling from Man City, if Sterling goes away to Liverpool, doesn't score, and then he plays at the Etihad against Tottenham, just gets an assist, doesn't score, no one expresses any concerns over the form, the ability of Raheem Sterling, because people quite rightly look at that and go, a game against Liverpool, a game against Spurs, he's got an assist, played well in the other game, so what?
Yeah.
So it frustrates me that Pepe is... And the reason I use Sterling is because Sterling is hailed as one of the best players in the Premier League right now. So why we're already, as a fan base, seem to be holding Pepe to this higher pedestal, even above the Raheem Sterlings, the Riyad Mahrezes, the Agueros almost. No one's going to be able to live up to that. I'm sure if Messi joined Arsenal, it is quite probable that he may not have scored in either of those first 2 games either, away at Anfield and at home to Spurs.
Yeah, it's not 2 games to measure a new signing on. Just because other players have had outstanding games in those 2, you talk about. I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles has looked fantastic all season. So if you said to this extent, Maitland-Niles was brilliant against Liverpool and he was brilliant against Spurs, why wasn't Pepe? You can't expect every single player this early in the season to be showing up and putting in incredible performances every game. It's just not going to happen, especially when they're so new to the squad.
Yeah, and I think it's underrated how young Pepe still is.
Yeah,
he's only 20. He's only 23.
He looks slightly raw, but I would expect that from a player of his age.
And that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's the exciting part about him is, and you can see it in defenders who come up against him, they're terrified. Because they're like, what on earth is this bloke going to do?
Yeah.
Even Van Dijk, the best player in the world supposedly, winning the UEFA Men's Player of the Year. He looked terrified. Like I'd never seen him scared before up against Pepe.
And
it was
past him in, 50 Premier League games, was it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, it's like he's put the base in. You know, he's like, okay, so this is where Pepe's at if he's not performing outstandingly. And he'd still walk into our first 11. You wouldn't say, oh, he needs to be dropped. He's not playing good enough. This is what Pepe
absolutely.
is. It's still good. It's just not the whatever it was we were expecting. The next Thierry Henry. It's not that level. You know, it has every potential to be a phenomenal player. Just going to take a bit of time to unlock it, I think. And once we, again, going back to the approach, the system, once we lock that all in and he learns the system, it'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
I was thinking actually. Yeah. Again, if we're talking about, you know, if we move on to how we make the front three as a whole work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe Pepe played predominantly as a right mid for Lille in a 4-4-2. So a right wing, perhaps not necessarily comfortable to that. I was looking at
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
There was a heat map for Pepe last season versus Pepe this season. Mm-hmm. He picks the ball up from the halfway line for Lille constantly and runs forward from there, which you saw against Liverpool because that's what he was doing because we were sitting so deep. He was picking the ball up deep and running forwards. So perhaps a different approach would favour him more. I don't know. I don't know if he's an out-and-out winger or if he's a right mid. He certainly looks accustomed to going forwards and then coming back and defending. So perhaps the way to make the Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe work, considering I think we're both in agreement that we'd rather have Aubameyang at a striker than instead of out on that wing, right?
Yes.
So if we played a 4-4-2 or similar variant with Lacazette and Aubameyang up front and Pepe at right mid, perhaps that would be a better way to fit those three into a team.
I think that's a great idea.
Positions.
Yeah, because I've always thought as well with the whole 4-4-2 debate, when we saw Leicester do it so effectively when they won the league, what you saw is you had one sort of engine room, Kante, and then, as funny as it sounds nowadays, you had the one sort of more progressive, let's get this ball down and start spraying it about in Danny Drinkwater. And we have got the two perfect centre mids to be playing that game. We've got Torreira and Guendouzi, who could do that fantastically. So I would love to see the 4-4-2 being implemented. Maybe with Ceballos out wide left.
This is what I was thinking. When I was thinking about what my first team would look like. And it's almost a shame we got rid of Alex Iwobi, because he would be brilliant as a left mid, where he's not required to produce as much end product as you'd expect from a left winger or a cam.
But he can do sort of what he was always good at, which is picking up the ball.
He's a runner, he's a worker, he's very well suited to being an out-and-out left mid. Perhaps even Kolasinac could be a good left mid in a 4-4-2.
Yeah, and then Kieran Tierney bombing on the overlap.
How much I'd like my two left back options on the pitch at the same time, though, I'm not sure about.
Because then what does happen if one of them get injured? Yeah. But I mean, Reece Nelson can play left mid.
Yeah, but again, it's like Reece Nelson, for me, has a lot of development to do in a very short space of time now. If he's going to reach the first team level and then the potential that we know he's got. Because he's been fairly, I think his loan spell at Hoffenheim, good in glimpses, come on a substitute, scored goals because he's got pace and energy to run at a tight defence. But you then argue why, if he's scoring that much and that frequently, why wasn't he starting for Hoffenheim? So perhaps again, showing in training a perceived lack of quality, and how quickly he was taken off against Newcastle to bring Pepe on for his debut. Whether that was in the plan to give Pepe 45 minutes or not, but yeah, I think Nelson had 6 touches of the ball before half-time, if I'm remembering correctly.
Sounds about right.
Underwhelming for how good he's been at youth level. But again, he's a 19-year-old kid with a high ceiling. I think for me, a loan spell to a Premier League club, not abroad, would be best suited for him, where he can get game time in the league, start learning the opposition defences properly, and then to come back and make an impact, which I mean I don't see happening now. We've got rid of Iwobi, but would have been my preferred option for this season, I think, after signing Pepe.
Yeah, and I do think he's fallen victim of the classic Arsenal thing to do, which is, we've got a good young academy player, he's going to be the next Henry.
Yeah.
I think he has fallen victim to that a bit, and I do completely agree. He's got a lot of developing to do before he is and I mean, even myself personally, if you'd asked me what my preferred starting 11 was at the start of the season, it probably would have included Reece Nelson.
Yeah.
But as it's worked out, he's not quite ready enough, and that's fine. He's a 19-year-old kid. That is absolutely fine, but we just need to find the right development path for him, which I do agree. I think we can use him in all the Europa League games, all the Carabao Cup games, all the early FA Cup games, and then when it hits January, give him a 6-month loan to a Brighton or a Crystal Palace or a
Sheffield United. One of those teams that could do with a player of his quality, where he's going to get the game time.
Yeah, exactly.
We got Emile Smith-Rowe coming back, who isn't naturally a wide player, but has looked comfortable when playing there. You got Bukayo Saka in, so if anything happened to the main first team wide men, we've got backup to replace them if we let Nelson go and get game time, right? We've done a lot of skimming to the squad this season, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? We've got rid of a lot of the players that wouldn't have been first team, but especially with the amount of fixtures we've got being in the Europa League, having 2 cup competitions on top of that as well, we're a bit light, I think, now. So Mkhitaryan leaving on deadline day to Roma, I think that's left us a little bit thin for wide areas. I
think business-wise, that's a fantastic bit of business, but
completely.
Footballing-wise,
Roma to pay his 180 grand a week wages and give us a loan fee. We've swindled them. It's the same as getting an 18 million future fee clause on El Neni. How did they agree to that?
It is.
What have they been watching? They just kept watching him go against Barcelona and thought, oh, he's good, he is. So
just got that on repeat in the boardroom.
That's their scouting department. That's all they could afford, the one clip. So they, was like, oh, we'll get him.
He looks class. 18 million, absolute bargain.
Swindled the Egyptian prince himself.
But yeah, I mean, I think as a quick little plug on the Instagram, as everyone can see if they follow me on Instagram, Connor_JamesFootball, in a lot of my blog posts, I've been talking about how I'm really enjoying seeing an Arsenal football club that has a very astute business group behind it. Because at the end of the day, football's a business. As much as we don't like that from a purist point of view, football is a business, and the ones who compete at the very, very top are also the best at the business. There's no coincidence between that, and if we want to get right back to the top, we're going to have to be the best at the business. So it's nice to see that we're actually operating there for once.
Yeah, a bit of ruthlessness for once.
Yes,
but
it's nice to see.
at the same time, it's the Monreal deal, for example. We let him go for peanuts because he said, he said he wanted to go back to Spain. I think it was last season. So same as Koscielny, wanted to go home, right? But conducted himself in such a manner where he still turned up, still went on pre-season, stepped up to the first team when it was demanded of him, wore the captain's armband, led the team. So offer came in that probably wasn't to his value. He only had a year left and he's 33 years old, so his value wasn't significant anyway. But we came in and, perhaps as a show of good faith, accepted that. It's like, sure, you've been a good servant to the club, off you go, but at the same time demonstrated ruthlessness in other deals, so hanging on with Koscielny, for example, until a bid came in that was of good value because of the way he conducted himself, getting good money for the Mkhitaryan deal, getting good clauses on the El Neni deal, getting fantastic money for the player Iwobi was.
Oh, unbelievable.
We've been ruthless, because Iwobi has a place in our squad, but for the, we've gone out, got an offer with Everton that is far more valuable to us than having Iwobi as a backup in our squad.
Whereas contributing to 3 or 4 goals a season.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened under previous regimes. Ivan Gazidis would not have gone out and have solicited offers like that.
He wasn't a business person, he was a lawyer at the end of the day. And you can see that by all of his press conferences and stuff. He was a very slick talker. But when it actually came down to the business, he was just absolutely hapless.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Arsene Wenger's currently writing his autobiography, which is being written in French.
Oh, here we go.
Translation isn't going to be beautiful, but that's going to be incredibly interesting to read, especially about the last couple of years of his reign. I think there's going to be some scathing remarks.
Oh, I hope so.
There's no one in the hierarchy left now. It's only the Kroenkes, and unless he goes after them, because again, there was talk earlier in the week he was meeting with members of the Arsenal hierarchy discussing a potential return. Eventually, it was decided that it's too early on after him leaving to. It would feel a bit like he was trying to overshadow the person that's replaced him, so they've sort of put that.
Which I completely agree with.
There you go. I'm not opposed at all to Wenger coming back in some capacity at some point. But a year after is way too short.
Yeah, and it's an added layer of pressure.
Yeah, it's just unneeded at this point.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I really do hope that in whatever autobiography he brings out, I hope there is some real sort of airing out the dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And Ivan Gazidis gets an absolute roasting. Because that man, honestly, he's
absolutely shambolic.
I don't think there's many people that could have taken over Arsenal and had such a meteoric turnaround than sort of Raul Sanllehi, Vinay, Edu. They've done fantastically.
Yeah.
Gazidis left the club in a horrific state because he was clueless.
Well, if you're thinking about, if you're the owners of AC Milan and you've gone for Gazidis, right? How it is not raised a huge red flag that the man trusted to smooth over the transition at Arsenal Football Club from a model that was heavily reliant on a manager doing lots of the back house operation to modernising the club, getting the right people in place. For him to then leave halfway through that, admittedly to yourself, the people who are trying to... How has that not gone, he's going to flag us off as soon as a better job comes around, we don't want that.
Exactly.
You want someone that's going to see out a project at least, don't you? You say what you want about the performance of the man as a CEO. You want someone that's going to stick it out and finish his job, aren't you?
Yeah, because essentially what I heard is that the reason he got the job is because apparently Gazidis was a big part of the MLS sort of uprising, its increase in popularity. So by all intents and purposes, he got sort of jobs for the boys. It was kind of the Milan owner was heavily involved in that sort of corporate sphere as well. Yeah. And Gazidis sort of just cozied up to him and two familiar faces and sort of decided that would be. But again, it's just when you're running a football club, you're putting all your money up to be lost.
Yeah.
You want a bit more than, I remember you. But you know what, he's not Orisha anymore, so you can't be anything like less than happy.
So our perceived lack of squad depth now, I think we can safely say we do have a lack of squad depth. It's entirely the old regime's fault for putting this new regime in a position where they have to be ruthless and cut the squad down so much just to keep us at a level that's sufficient, that we can self-sustain ourselves. Because, again, there's the Kroenke interview, the Josh Kroenke, not Stan, he never speaks, does he? Josh was saying that it's blindingly obvious that we have a Champions League budget, we have a Champions League wage bill and a Europa League budget right now.
Yeah.
So what they somehow, miraculously, after this summer, have managed to put us in a spot now where we're paying where we are. We're not overspending, probably not underspending, knowing us, but we're still at a point where we can sustain this. If we didn't get Champions League football next season after, it's not going to put us in a position where financially we're at risk, which as a fan can be as frustrating as anything, that money isn't being invested. But at the end of the day, you do not want what's happened to Bury and Bolton, where you're in a position where your club is on the verge of or has completely disappeared. That's
because
the
of ludicrous business decisions. Yeah,
they have a responsibility as part of their job is to ensure that the club operates on a day-to-day basis, right? Then comes the okay, now let's compete and win things. It has to start at a sound point, which thankfully now appears we have people in the right place to do that. But I do get really worried with the squad depth. I think if Pepe gets injured, we don't have a quality right mid. For me, Reece Nelson is much better coming in off the left than he is on the right. Perhaps Maitland-Niles could be a right mid, because Maitland-Niles is, I don't know what he is now. Hasn't played centre mid enough to have developed into a centre mid for someone of his age to then play at our level.
Yeah, he's not a right back.
Looks good going forward. Could be a right mid, right winger. He's sort of been a victim of his own versatility at this point.
He has, and I think it's a shame because he's one of those Arsenal boys through and through. But I think at the end of the day, for him, and it's a ruthless thing to say because I really like Maitland-Niles. As I say, he's an Arsenal boy through and through. So he naturally endears himself to the fans really quickly. But I think that's fine. To have a player like him who can play right back, left back, holding mid, on the sort of wide midfield roles, I'd be quite happy just to have him for the next 5 or 6 years, just bopping around the pitch, being in different positions when we need him.
Because you do need someone like that in your squad. It's just it's frustrating because when he came into the team as centre mid, he was fantastic. He was brilliant, and you could see that he had potential in that position. So it's incredibly frustrating then when it looks like he isn't going to develop into a player that plays in that position.
Yeah, because you immediately think about the in Wenger's last season, the Old Trafford, the United away. He was absolutely brilliant. And it's sad that I think that was the last game he played for us in centre mid.
Yeah, played left back, then right back.
Yeah, and it is tough, but as you say, you do need that type of player in and around the squad if you're going to do anything near challenge for titles. Yeah. You need that person who's going to just come in and plug those holes when you need them to be plugged.
Right, so question for you, right?
Right.
With the squad that we currently have, pretend everyone's fully fit, raring to go.
Yeah.
What is your starting 11? What formation do you play them in?
Oh Christ, it's so hard. I've always been a big advocate of the 4-3-3. I like what Liverpool do, and I do think we have the team to emulate it and sort of put our own swing on it. So I would go 4-3-3. Considering everyone's fit and sort of ready to go at their peak of their performance, I'd go Leno, Bellerin, Holding, David Luiz.
Yeah, that's the first major question mark when you're trying to pick the team, isn't it? So Holding for me is the starter, especially if he's playing like he was last season. He's the number one choice. It's then Socrates, Luiz, Chambers, Mustafi, or Mavropanos. Which one of them goes next to him?
Yeah, I mean, I go David Luiz because I think David Luiz, put him next to someone a bit more of a calming influence like Rob Holding. I think he can be the David Luiz of sort of the first Conte season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd go David Luiz, Tierney. I'd have Torreira sitting in front of the back of the centre backs. And this is a really tough decision, but considering this is this season, if everyone's fit, I'd go Ceballos and Guendouzi. And then up front, I would push Aubameyang out wide left, Laka through the middle, Pepe on the right, because I think that gives us a nice balance of a strong, compact, athletic midfield, while also getting enough, transition from the defensive areas to straight up to the attack without having to just hoof it over the top and hope for the best. What about you?
I think quite similar. Back four, I'd have exactly the same. So I was watching.
Are you going 4-3-3 as well?
Probably a variant. Probably having
Ooh.
2 sitting, 1 in a 10 as the midfield.
Okay. Nice.
So probably more of a 4-2-3-1, I guess you'd call that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I was watching a couple of clips of Rob Holding from last season. Because he was playing alongside Mustafi when we were. Rob Holding did not play in a losing team for us last season, and he was partnering Mustafi.
Yeah,
just for a bit of context for that. And I was trying to again. It's like 9 months since he's played. I've forgotten what Rob Holding plays like.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at it, when I was watching it, Mustafi was the one that would step up and try and engage. And Rob Holding would sit and wait to see what would happen. He wouldn't step up or mark a man. He would just sit in a space where he had everyone covered, right? Mustafi would inevitably miss the ball or do something stupid, right?
He'd have to mop up.
But because Rob Holding is what I would call a covering centre half instead of a more pressing centre half, he's always in a position then when he's still goal side, he's still between the man and the goal, he's also got, he's aware of where everyone is around him, that he can then clean up.
Which is exactly where Socrates needed to be when he lost
Socrates
out on the
Luiz
header for the first goal.
They're both the same sort of centre half. They're both ones that like to step up and engage. When, the first goal against Spurs, Socrates has stepped up, missed it. Luiz has also then stepped up and missed it.
Yeah.
Which you cannot have. You cannot have 2 defenders doing exactly the same thing. You need a bit of a variation, even if you want 2 ball playing centre halves, whatever. You at least need both of them to sit, one of them to sit, one of them to drop. You can't have them both step
have
up.
2 going. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'd still go Tierney at the left back. I think that's
Fantastic.
a no-brainer at this point. Isn't it? I don't think
Bit of a given,
is good enough. And then I would have the midfield. I'm not.
It's really tough,
I'm not
isn't
a
it?
fan of Granit Xhaka. Right.
So I don't know what's just fallen off the side there.
Heard his name, didn't you?
Sorry, carry
man, I
on.
won't mention
Yeah, I've started throwing stuff across the room.
But for me, Granit Xhaka isn't good enough. But he is the only experienced deep-lying centre mid we have. Torreira's young, Guendouzi's young. Willett could probably play that role, but he is also young. So I wouldn't have him.
I don't like where you're going with this, Henry.
No, because it's the toss-up whether I would have Xhaka or Guendouzi. Torreira would be one of them, and then it's Guendouzi or Xhaka. For me, Guendouzi gets forward too much if it's someone that's sitting.
Yep.
Sure, it's tough, but Guendouzi's, he displayed his quality plenty of times. We don't need to debate that.
Yeah.
So I'll probably go Guendouzi just for, he performs, he steps up, whereas Xhaka doesn't. If Xhaka didn't have the mistakes in him, be completely fine. I would then have probably Ceballos at the 10, although I would be really inclined to give Mesut Ozil a go now that he's got a proper wide man. Because
I wouldn't be against that.
Much better when he's got a proper winger to support.
Yeah.
Which I think is why last season before, after Sanchez left, he didn't look particularly good.
Yeah.
Whereas first half of season before last, with Sanchez in the team, a proper wide man, Walcott's still there at that point? He must have been. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
So
he would have been.
Sanchez on one side, Walcott on the other. He looked much better. Perhaps wasn't still to the level of the 13-14 season, but still
Yeah.
looked much better. So I'd be really inclined to give Mesut Ozil another go in the first team. And then the front three picks itself again. I'd have to put Aubameyang wide. I would like to see us.
It has to be done.
It has to be. I'd like to see us try a 4-4-2, but I don't think we've got the left mid or the maturity in midfield to not play Xhaka in a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
So 4-2-3-1 for me. But again, we've got that solid first team down now. Perhaps next season we might have a bit of an issue if Ceballos does stay at Real Madrid next season. We can't agree a permanent deal for him because Mesut Ozil's aging now anyway. He's on the tail end.
But at least then
and I think if we want to play
Yeah.
this pressing football, you need a number 10 with more energy than Mesut Ozil has.
Yeah, agreed.
I'd love a James.
But even then,
Madison,
we've got a whole
someone
summer.
like that in that sort of role. I think would be fantastic.
But
for
Leicester
you,
will
then,
try and get 100 mil for him.
yeah, they'll try and rinse us. But for you, for the
Christ.
centre half situation, we've got a lot of centre halves. Yet we don't seem to be able to pick a pairing for the future. Perhaps with Saliba coming back next season, Holding and Saliba are then the pair. But I would then have the same issues that I would have with a Torreira Guendouzi midfield of it just being so young. The spine of our team would be incredibly young.
But I kind of...
It's like, yes, for the long term that's fine, but for the short term, say we don't get Champions League football this season, would you trust a pairing of Holding Saliba at centre back, Torreira Guendouzi centre mid, to then get us into the top four?
I think I would.
You would?
As crazy as that sounds, I do think I would, because as much as I'm a big supporter of the whole debate of you can't just throw a bunch of kids, no matter how talented they are. You can't just throw them in there and expect them to win every week. But what you can do is not necessarily by playing the youngsters, but just by playing people. Let me phrase it a different way. By playing, a mixture of experience and youngsters over the last few years. What we haven't been performing well. We've had a lot of mistakes from the so-called more experienced players. So I don't see, for example, I keep saying it, but for example, one of our experienced centre mids is Granit Xhaka. If you put Guendouzi in there next to Torreira, Guendouzi will not make as many mistakes as Xhaka. He may not bring to the team what Xhaka does, but we're not losing as many silly games because Xhaka's just done something absolutely brainless. So as much as I do subscribe to the side that there needs to be experience, I don't think we have the right experienced players in the team to warrant not just going for all the talented youngsters.
Yeah, I understand your point. I just think we're now, I think with the way the demographic of our squad is, I think we have the youngest average age of any Premier League squad this season, right? I think we're in a similar situation to Spurs a couple of years ago when they were bleeding through all the youngsters, which is when they started bottling things, which is what I would be concerned about. Because the last thing I would want is to have this crop of very, very promising young players get absolutely destroyed mentally and develop a losing negative attitude because you can't expect the same from them as you would expect from an experienced player. So it's like, I think for me, we keep... I wouldn't look to sign a centre-half in January. I think lots of people have been talking about going back in for Upamecano, or there's a guy playing out in Portugal, can't remember his name, that people keep talking about.
Ruben Diaz.
Yes. I wouldn't go in for another young centre-half if I was going in for a centre-half. I think the outlook to the future aspect of things, we have that sorted. I think our defence is fine for the long term. I think if we're signing another centre-back, it needs to be an immediate fix centre-back. It needs to be someone that's going to walk straight into that defence, lead it.
A 28, 29-year-old.
Going to play at the top level for only a couple of years and then make way for the younger players behind.
Yeah.
and that's what the focus needs to be. I think that in general for January, actually, I wouldn't look at signing any prospect players. It would be experience, which is, unless those players have fallen out of favour at the clubs they're currently at, it's going to be hard to find. But
yeah, that is difficult.
It's tough, man. We got a lot of promising players. It's just how we get all of them to the level.
Yeah, and I mean, over the last few years, things haven't exactly gone our way often.
No.
So I think I do keep coming back to that, and it's a big fantasy. Like I just want to chuck all the quality young talent we've got, just chuck them in a team and go on then.
Yeah.
Like, see what you can do. Just do your best. I'd love to see it, but obviously I know that with the long-term vision, that's probably not the most sensible thing to do. But I'm at the point where I'm just longing for a bit of. We don't have much of an identity recently, so I'm longing for just something to attach myself to.
Yeah.
And I think that is something I can really get behind. Is if we just chuck Willock, Guendouzi, Martinelli, Xhaka, Nelson, and Ketia. Just shove them in a team and just
John
go
Lopez,
do your best.
18s, mate. Just start for the first team.
I'll get him in there. Football Manager legend.
Again, it's not even like it's just the young players in the first team that are hugely promising. You look at the under 23s at the moment. There's so many exciting players coming up through them. Lots of them featured on the pre-season tour. John Jules, for example,
yeah.
I'm very excited about.
Who was the young centre mid who scored the absolute worldie?
Olayinka.
Olayinka.
Yeah,
he looks very good.
So does. I'm going to forget his name. Welsh guy, young centre mid.
Robbie Burton.
He looks good.
He did look. He worries me that he might be a bit lightweight for the Premier League.
Yeah,
though.
but he's still a young guy, and he's same as Reece Nelson. And needs to do some developing physically. Same as Xhaka. You know, lots of them just
exactly as Willock's done over the last
year.
Yeah, I do agree. Do you want to wrap it up there? We've done
let's wrap
an
it
hour
up
and
on a
15.
positive note.
Because I don't feel like we're going to have many of those. so let's leave it on the nicest note we possibly can. But yeah. So one last time on Twitter, it's Henry_Nettle, and I'll be amazed if anyone's made it this far. But if you're bopping around Instagram, it's Connor_James Football. Thank you very much for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Bye.